Hello and welcome to one of the most intriguing topics we have discussed, that of the dark web rising. And is India really prepared for the dark web? Because as far as I have seen, most people are not even aware as to what the dark web really is. In the last 2 years, as the classes for children became online, the threat of the looming dark web has increased manyfold. To discuss this topic, we have three of the best minds to speak on this very topic. Mrs. Neetu Chadha, she is the director of SBF Group of Schools. Welcome, ma'am, to our show today.
Thank you.
Mr. Anurag Kumar Singh, he's the director of Study Hall Group of Schools and Institutions. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Anupama Viswakarma, she's a psychologist, as well as she has done a lot of research from the point of view of cyber security as well, as far as the dark web is concerned. First, Anuragji, I'd like to come to you. Because I spoke to you a few months back, and you were very well aware of some of these topics. So, but then there were a few constraints that we were speaking about earlier. So we could, start with that itself. What constraints do educational institutions face in making the parents understand the grave realities of the dark web? Anuragji.
Okay. One thing that I've realized, and this is primarily, I would look into it from a small town and a big town status, where, the parents from the small towns are absolutely not aware. Forget about the web, the dark web or the deep web, looking at all these aspects. For them, it's just internet. And for them right now, the biggest concern for them is that kids falling prone to pornography and getting onto all these sites. So for them right now, the education bit is kind of missing when it comes to the dark web. So they need to be made aware of what exactly is the dark web and what can really go wrong with their kids if they're not tutored well and the kids do not know well. So, the entire philosophy of what exactly is the dark web and how they can fall prey, their kids can fall prey to that entire scenario. That's a very, very subjective and a long debate that we need to do with the parents for them to understand. And when it comes to education, I think everything needs to be in a very closed circuit environment when we as in schools are taking online classes.
Right. Neetuji, if I could throw this same question to you as well. What are the constraints you feel, the schools are facing as far as parents are concerned in explaining this concept? As Anuragji, he rightly mentioned that, majority of the parents are not aware of this. And majority of majority of India is also rural India. And we have seen even in cities like, Delhi and Chandigarh, where people are well off, even there, the parents are not really, well aware of this particular topic.
See, Arpan, I strongly agree with what Anurag has said. I think internet has changed human life forever. So right from schools to our homes, everything around has just changed. So the dark web is, often seen as a black hole that is difficult to access, risky. It remains an untold story to a lot of parents, even parents who are, in metropolitans. There are a lot of parents who are really not aware of this dark web concept. Unless you really don't go around reading about it, we really don't know what really dark web is. And, I think the biggest constraint that we feel today is the fear that parents send their children to schools and they feel the monkey is off our back. But that really is not the case, because I think it is a lesser time that the child spends in the school in comparison to the child spending the time at home and has or is prone to dark web more at home than in schools. So I really feel that we have to have a partnership program. The constraint is that the parents have to be in partnership with the schools and understand, be compassionate towards the, children and help them change or maybe learn about this whole concept of a dark web.
Right. Just to pick your brains on, where you just left off, in times of COVID, where children now have almost unlimited access to the internet, and child lock is actually the new parent lock, where, so what are some measures educational institutions can take to keep students away from falling, prey to the dark web? Neetu ji, if you could take that.
Yeah, I think during these COVID times, fortunately or unfortunately, the children have been given a lot of access to the online. My girl has access to it all the time, and that's the challenge. As a parent also, I feel, of course, as an educationalist, it's a different ball game altogether, because, as a parent, I can actually feel for the parents who feel that, बच्चों को बहुत mobile दिया जा रहा है, and, they have access to practically everything possible. So I think we, as schools, what we can do is, the measures that we can take is that we should be counseling the parents very often. We should be able to give the parents that comfort that, they are able to in turn comfort their children, so that, this whole jargon of a dark web or online is not intimidating for a child, and the child is really able to come back to the parent and talk about it, and the parent in turn is able to come back and, come to the school. School could have a little scientific approach towards dealing with the problem, and in case possible, if possible, they should notify the CEOP. I strongly feel.
Right. Anurag ji, as a director of educational institutes, what will be your message to parents, just from where Neetu ji left off, what will be your message to parents who are unaware of these kind of threats?
See, I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is the message that before the message to the parents. I think, as Neetu said, that about counseling. I think counseling is very, very important, and we need to tell them that what problems their kids can face because of the dark web.
Right.
What all can they get into? It could be pornography, it could be drugs, it could be the basic, it could be the drug couriers, and they will. Some of them will not even know that they're doing this kind of an activity. For them, it's just a parcel which is getting shifted from here A to B or B to C or something like that. So again, counseling is very, very important for the parents, and letting them know that all the problems that they can face. I'll give an example. About a month ago, I was talking to this parent of mine, and he was in school. He says, my kid's eyes have gone weak because he's too much on the internet. He's too much on the phone. So I said, what are you doing to stop that? So he says, I can't do much, because whenever I go to him and I ask him, why are you on the phone? He says, homework.
Yes, the standard.
Right.
Taking it from there, Anupama, being a psychologist, so I want to pick your brains a little bit. What is the psychology of the dark web? I mean, if you could just take, for the educators, but also for the parents, the psychology and the dark web as far as the children are concerned, why they get into it. If you could just tell us in brief.
For sure, Arpan. So while Neetu ma'am and sir were speaking, one thing which came to my mind is, there's been a research, in fact, which shows that by scientific evaluation using the scientific tools, which in fact we use in CatFit, you're very well aware, right? So these tools are helpful in identifying the personality types. Okay. So once you know the personality, it's been shown in the research that there have been some personalities which in layman's language we can call as loners, right? The ones who are isolated, who like to be isolated, those who have emotional instabilities. These are some of the common traits we should find in students, in teenagers, in your children, and address those. So once you understand the personality of your child, it is much more easier to deal with such problems. So first is identifying the psychology, which we are speaking about, right? So until and unless you understand who are the kids or who are the people who are prone to fall into these categories, who can actually go towards this very easily. And human mind is made in such a way that it is more attracted to something which is prohibited, right? If I'll go and tell you that, Arpan, you should not do it, you'll be tempted to do it. You'll try, at least I should see, So there is a thrill. Yes, there is a thrill and adventure in doing the things. So as sir very rightly said, counseling is important in setting up the communication way. channelizing the communication, which should be two-way. If a child is getting into such thing, he should also be able to express his feelings and need to get into this, because the psychology says those who use dark web are constant visitor of the dark web. They have a desire to be there repeatedly. And if you see, there are some rooms which are called loners, solitude walkers and something like that.
They're
they're attracted. Yeah, they're attracted to the names itself.
So Neetu, coming back from what she's talking about channelizing communication, this is between parents and children, educators and children. So that is one aspect, but there is a bigger aspect which gets, often gets missed out, and that is regarding government. So what measures will you like the government to take to assist schools to tackle this threat, which is, increasing at a very rapid pace?
See, I think awareness campaigns, like, people don't know what, that we need to understand that there are 3 levels in the internet. A lot of people don't know that. There's open web, there's deep web, there's dark web, each unique and, have their different purposes. So one needs to really understand that. And going forward, I think then the government should be taking initiatives for bringing about awareness regarding these, the webs that are available. And I strongly believe that agar aapko negative ko kam karna hai, then you have to, really showcase your positives. So they have to really tell people that if you have a disease, it's normal and you can come for blood tests, and, it's all right. You will get, diagnosed in time, and there will be measures that will be taken, precautionary measures that will be taken, to cure you, rather than telling them, oh, it is really a fatal disease and you will die and things like that, or people don't know about it. So, I would say ignorance is really not bliss here.
True. So taking it from there, Anuragji, schools, I have seen, a lot of schools across the country, they make a lot of effort to ensure that the children remain safe from a variety of things. In this specific case, talking about the dark web, where are we faltering as a society? And if you could suggest a few remedial measures, since you spend so much time with children.
Where we are faltering is, I would agree with Neetu, is on awareness. The government is not aware, or maybe that a certain segment would be aware, but the general public across is really not aware. And then no one can actually differentiate between the open web, the deep web, or the dark web. So that's where I think we are faltering. And again, communication, as even Anupama said, that it has to be, a two-way communication, and it has to be a dialogue between all the parties involved, rather than just being a monologue saying that, even when we go in and go out, tell the kids that this is what needs to be done, it's only that 15 or 20% of the kids that end up doing that activity. Otherwise, everyone will just leave it. So now we've got to first tell them, again, educate them, make them aware what exactly is the dark web, and be prepared that there will be someone or the other who will still try to beat the system and get into the dark web. So there has to be, the kids need to be aware of what what precautions that they need to take, and the problems that they might face if they get into this deep, dark, dirty world called dark web.
Neetu, taking it from there, as per the CBSE guidelines, I was reading them a few, even last year when I read them, there are clear guidelines that institutions need to have psychologists and counselors. However, even though there are a lot of counselors and psychologists in most schools, no scientific evaluation is done regularly for children. For example, at CatFit, we do these evaluations and bring children back on track from such threats, and then empower them with a pioneering mental toughness program. How important do you think is it to put children through a scientific process to evaluate their mental, psychological, and emotional health?
I think it is very important for anybody, not only the children, especially for the parents, to be aware. So like I said, we have to bring the dark web into light. That is what I strongly believe. Because, unless you don't talk about it, you will not know about it. And if you don't know about it, you will not be able to find a solution towards it. So I feel a scientific approach all schools, I think, should adopt, this is my recommendation, should adopt a scientific approach, because it will help us evaluate, like Anupama just said, that, you'll be able to really identify who's the loner and who's not the loner, or, the other parameters that, each science has to itself. So I would really say that scientific evaluation is very important, and it's a very important tool to help the schools identify, communicate to the parents what is the need of a child, what is the kind of support that we could provide to the child individually. And I think these scientific approaches also helps you rake in a third party, like probably a CatFit or any other organization, where a child might feel more comfortable to talk to a third person than they might want to talk to somebody in the system. Because they might feel कि वो school का teacher है या something, and it will be something that they will not be a confidant to them. So I feel a scientific approach would probably be the way forward.
Arpan, if I may add to what Neetu ma'am said, actually, see, ma'am said about the awareness campaign also and the scientific evaluation. All these things has to be recurring in nature. It cannot be one-time investment that you educate one time to the parents or children and it's done. Every 3 months, 6 months, you have to build a chain reaction. Once a person goes back, maybe this is not the right timeline for them. The children are growing, they're evolving, they're changing constantly, right? Their needs are changing, their behaviors are changing. And especially the adolescents, they go through so many of emotional, physical changes, hormonal changes, right? They have identity crisis. So many things are happening with them. So for them to learn to communicate, it may take recurring events. You may have to have some campaigns. You may have to have some educational programs for them. Even if government may try, they should actually involve this as a part of their education system. Maybe one chapter. I don't know how they can do that, but these things will help them a lot in a long term.
So I have seen that scientific approach really work with my daughter and a couple of other children in the same class. So I think it is the way forward. We can't run away from science.
Anuragji, I would like you to answer this one, because in the last 2 years, the schools have been forced to take education online. Everyone is aware of it. And right now, Neetuji was, mentioning 2 years, nobody's been to school. This has paved the way for the dark web activity to, actually soar. So how important is it to take kids out for a digital detox? I mean, I'm just playing the devil's advocate and taking it to the other side of the spectrum. How important is it to take the kids out for a digital detox? And what are renowned institutions such as yours doing regarding the same?
So actually, I think comparatively, we were a lot luckier when it came to Uttarakhand and the schools opened, and I was almost getting about a 95% attendance on any given day. And if I would take the entire week into consideration, I had 100% attendance. So once the kids started coming to school, though we were running a very hybrid model where there's just a couple of kids if they're sitting at home, we were doing classes for them. But yes, what we started, and there's a conscious effort that our teachers took of not giving homework online. So everything we even till date, what we do is if we do give the homework online, it has to be manually submitted in school by the parent.
Okay.
So now what that is doing is at least moving away from the screen time, and then they have to open their notebook to figure out what the answers are, rather than just Googling and giving the answers, because that was something that I realized in between when I was just, going through notebooks, and most of the people had the same answers, and the language and the verbiage was very internet-like. It wasn't what a teacher generally teaches you. So that is one conscious effort we took of not giving homework online. But coming back to it is very, very important for them to go off screen time. So more than the parents, I will give you my personal example. I'm a father of a teenage son, and thankfully he loves his outdoor activities, he loves his games. But I've realized, and this is something that I've started seeing him in the last couple of months, the moment he comes and sits inside, he just picks up the phone.
I think that's true for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
But you know, but I think, so now what I've started doing is, at least at night, once they get to bed, the phones come into my room, and both my daughter's phone as well as my son's phone, they're both in my room, and I put them off. I said, no, you will not. And meal times, you know, during these times, when it's family time, the designated family time, even my phone's kept separately.
Anupama, taking it, to another side, which is, I believe, the most important side, and that is of the mental health of children and the impact dark web has on the mental health. You have been part of our team for so many years, and last 3-4 years we worked so much on mental health. So what is the impact of mental health on the children who are surfing the dark web, and how is it impacted? Because when the child's mental health is not in order, the whole family can go off balance.
Absolutely, Arpan. And you see, the impacts which are there can be long lasting. It is something like PTSD. In fact, let's just take an example. If somebody has been cyberbullied, he's been blackmailed, or something has happened, right? His first is that there is no awareness that who he can trust enough to tell this problem. So there will be a period of time when the person will suffer alone. Okay, that will create a lot of pressure on them. There could be a lot of pressure. What if I tell the person, they do not trust me, they do not support me? There could be threatening, right? So all these kind of things will add, and it could result into post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, there could be nightmares in a lot of them. They could be terrified in making a social contact again. When it comes to creating social contact, they might have a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety in that, right? And in fact, like I was saying, there are personalities which are more prone to fall to such categories, who may in fact get into dark web comparatively more easily than others. So it will be very difficult to make them speak again, to make them adopt to natural environment, their surroundings, the people. Their confidence will be low. Of course, it will shatter their self-esteem. And a lot of people target self-image, the body image, self-image, all these things are targeted in dark web. So I think you can draw the picture. It's very horrifying. And like you said, the measure we take in CatFit to build mental toughness of people, when you are mentally tough, when you're confident, you're of course more, you have more tools to fight such incidents, even if somebody is preying on you.
Neetu, in my own experience, I have seen institutions fear using scientific methods and tools because of the what if factor. What if, we really find out something is wrong with some child? How can one convince them, the parents in this case, that it is for their long-term, parents and some educational institutions as well, that it is for the long-term and ultimate benefit, and that such evaluations always remain discreet, firstly, as per the law, and yet they remain hesitant. So if you could throw some light on this.
Well, I think what if is a question that I think we have for a lot of other things also. But, what if I have a chest pain, I might get a cardiac arrest, So what if for a lot of things? And as I said before also, that bringing the dark web into light is something that we have to start talking about. And it's the 3 T's that I strongly believe in, which is teaching, talking, training, So all these 3, I think, are play a very important role for any institution. Scientific evaluation, as I said earlier, is a very, very good and important parameter. And I think it is an eye-opener for the parents and the schools to understand the need of a child completely. And unless we don't talk about it, I don't think people will really get convinced into why it is important. So like, what if, why if, so that is something that I really feel that we have to start talking about it. We have to bring things into life. We have to support it with case studies, real or a dummy case study, that So we have to start talking about it. It has to be, like Anupama said, it has to be a continuous process. It cannot be a process which has just been introduced and then we don't talk about it. And of course, the children, like I was discussing with a friend of mine who just mentioned, and he was talking and he told me that, what we've learned in 10 years, the children today are exposed in 3 months. And they, they know it way better than we do. So scientific evaluation will help us know the impact of that particular problem, or I will not really call it a problem, identify the gray area, and the impact can be identified and rectified is what I would, believe in.
Arpan, sorry, if I may just add one thing to what Neetu ma'am said. Basically, if there is a mental scar, like we are talking about mental health impact, if somebody has already made a mistake, then peer support groups and parental support, teacher support will be a great thing. It has tremendous power to heal anyone. Just knowing that even if you have made mistake, there are possibilities of rectification. Support groups is a great way of dealing with these things. So I think, that will be one thing which I would also recommend, if possible, for institutions to adopt.
But I would, I'm continuing here, Arpan, if you may, allow me, that, the very fact that we have to change the thinking of people, especially the parents in the rural area, because that's where I am dealing, the semi-rural, rural area, I would say, that, parents do not even have the confidence of knowing what their child is really doing. They're Googling, but they really don't know ki wo kya Google kar rahe. They don't know. So dark web is a different level of, to actually penetrate into that rural market, to actually talk about it and tell parents that ye aisi bhi koi cheez hoti hai, and you don't have to run away from it, rather face it. And, that I think, it is a partnership program. As I say, education is a partnership program. Anurag just mentioned that he takes the phone away from his children, and that's how they, as a parent, he ensures that he's limiting the time of his children to screen time. A lot of parents do that, 40 minutes of screen time or 1 hour of screen time. So A, you are limiting it. B, you are giving that child confidence that, as parents, you are there for the child. Thirdly, and most importantly, we as parents should not be asking children very threatening questions that they just move back into their shell and then, they don't come back to us with probably a dark web that they've gotten into without even knowing that they've gotten into it.
One last question. I think I'll throw that to Anurag ji. If serious steps are not taken by the government, media, schools, and the parents, how serious can a threat like this become? I mean, could this be the next epidemic?
You could say that. See, because if you've actually seen, most of these activities start with fun and games.
True.
Right? So taking into consideration the blue whale game and all that nonsense and that stuff. So, but I think, and check out the amount of people that got hooked on to that activity.
Yeah.
So, and I think the more people get involved in these kind of activities, is I think that it's going to be a big problem for the future generations, because the internet is going to grow from now onwards. So we have to look into it as of yesterday, educate, counsel everyone as of yesterday, not even saying that, okay, we still have time, because we don't know if we may have time or we probably miss the bus.
Yeah.
Because it probably is sitting on a ticking time bomb, but we have no clue. So I think that the earlier that we start, the better.
So on that note, I think you've rightly put it, that internet is here to stay and it is only going to grow from here. I would request all parents and teachers who are listening, it will be best that, not to feel that we know it all. None of us know it all. It's always best to seek help and assistance from, large and variety of people and sources, institutions and organizations, so that we ensure that the next generation is safe from things such as the dark web. The dark web ultimately leads to things like depression, suicide, drugs, as Anurag ji was earlier saying, prostitution, racketeering, flesh trade. And once we go down that rabbit hole, it's a never-ending, process. So I'd like to firstly, thank all three of you for taking out time today. And till we meet again, audience, thank you. Jai Hind.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.